Minutes of your time. I want you guys to check out this video that I just watched yesterday morning, and it's pretty revealing to what is possibly going on with America's Turning Point. It's another company that Charlie Kirk had. Seems like he had 4 or 5 different ones, and there could be some real questionable people working for him. And I want you guys to check this out because I thought it was very interesting. So I'm going to go ahead and get it on the screen, you guys. I want you guys to watch this with me. All right, let's go.
Since the murder of Charlie Kirk, there's been growing concern over potential financial mismanagement at Turning Point USA. I've been looking into this and have discovered some shocking information. We're going to explore the question, did Turning Point USA commit fraud? I'm Zach, I'm a certified public accountant, and you are watching Wolves in Finance.
And let's make this very clear. This has to do with the people running the organization. When you have huge organizations like Charlie Kirk did, you trust people and you don't always know what's really going on. Okay, so let's continue.
In this video, I am very critical of Turning Point USA. Let me start off by saying that I believe this is a good organization, and I hope that they succeed. But they are not going to be able to continue Charlie Kirk's legacy if they are employing people who are stealing donations. The reason that people are concerned about Turning Point USA's finances is because statements made by Charlie Kirk himself. This is a memo written by Charlie Kirk on September 2nd, 2025, that is only 8 days before he was murdered. In this memo, he promotes Justin Strife as the new Chief Operating Officer, or COO, and announces a new Doge-style audit. After this memo was revealed, people obviously wanted to know,
tear up your car insurance bill this instead. I used to let them raise my car insurance every year until I found this.
What were the results of the Doge-style audit? Why was Charlie Kirk concerned with the finances of Turning Point USA right before he was murdered? Here's an exchange on X.com of someone asking that question. Why was Charlie about to audit the finances, and will it still be audited? This was responded to by someone from Turning Point named Tyler Boyer saying, "We audit our finances every year. They were just audited at the end of our fiscal year in July." He then goes on to say, "There is no scheming. Nonprofits have a 990 where everything is out front. No one owns anything, and our salaries are transparent. If you'd like a quick course on nonprofits, here is a good start." And then he links the accountinginsights.org website where they talk about the Form 990. Okay, number one, that response by Tyler Boyer is a little bit snarky. And I'm just showing you one of his posts. There are many posts like this, and they are all just as snarky. I would like to ask Tyler Boyer if he can lower the snarkiness because it is a very legitimate question. A Doge-style audit is not the same thing as the annual financial audit, and everybody knows that. Charlie Kirk wanted a second independent audit on top of the annual financial audit. According to Tyler Boyer's post, Turning Point is not going forward with Charlie Kirk's wishes. They have canceled the audit. The question is why? Why did they decide not to follow through with Charlie Kirk's final wish? What is also interesting is that Tyler Boyer is the person who was replaced by Justin Strife in Charlie Kirk's memo. Tyler Boyer was the former COO of Turning Point USA from 2017. And then 8 days before Charlie Kirk was murdered, he appoints a new person as COO. Tyler Boyer steps away so he can focus more on his job as COO of their other organization, Turning Point Action. Isn't that a strange coincidence? Tyler Boyer was removed from his position in the same memo that Charlie Kirk announces a financial audit. Then after that, Charlie Kirk is murdered, and Tyler Boyer is on X.com saying that no audit is necessary. So here's what I think we should do. We should follow Tyler Boyer's snarky advice. Let's go look at the 990 forms that Turning Point USA submits to the IRS every year. These contain their annual financial statements. When you look at the forms, there are some very strange anomalies.
You guys can find
Several of the 990 forms are missing. Turning Point USA lists 4 related entities. There is Turning Point USA, Turning Point Endowment, Turning Point Action, and America's Turning Point. All different organizations do slightly different things. The Form 990 for fiscal year 2024 is posted for Turning Point USA, but it is missing for all the other 3 organizations. It looks like it was never turned in. This is a massive red flag. So Tyler Boyer is being snarky on X.com and telling people to go look at the annual financial audit, but the financial audit is missing from last year for 3 of the 4 organizations. Just to show you how strange this is, if we go back 2 years to fiscal year 2023, where we have all the financial statements, we can see that in fiscal year 2023, all 4 statements were filed on the same day on 5/15/2024. That is what normally happens. On May 15th, Turning Point would file all 4 financial statements for their organizations. But for fiscal year 2024, only 1 financial statement was filed for Turning Point USA on 5/15/2025. The other 3 are missing. This strange decision to hide their financial statements happened 4 months before Charlie Kirk was murdered. I will repeat for clarity. Someone at Turning Point decided not to file 3 of the 4 of their annual financial statements 4 months before Charlie Kirk appointed a new COO, requested a new audit, and was murdered. Those 3 financial statements are still missing. Let me give you just one example of why this is problematic. Let us look at the one financial statement we do have for fiscal year 2024 for Turning Point USA. Schedule I shows grants and other assistance to organizations, governments, and individuals in the United States. This schedule shows you where Turning Point is sending its money. We see that a lot of money, $8,560,625, is being sent to America's Turning Point. They are sending it to their own shell company. Now, this is not necessarily illegal, except for the fact that the financial statement for the other organization is missing. We cannot see how this $8.6 million is being spent. This is very important because there are strange variances around this money. I have pulled the last 5 years of 990 forms for Turning Point USA. Here is a table with contributions compared with the largest expense, which are the grants from Schedule I. You can immediately see a strange dip between 2022 and 2023. This dip happens because in prior years, they were sending money to Turning Point Endowment. They were transferring millions of dollars. This stopped in 2021, and they started ramping up sending money to America's Turning Point. Let's break this down. First of all, I find it really unethical that they were sending millions of dollars to their own endowment. I know that a lot of nonprofits do this, but I think it is unethical. Do the donors know this is how Turning Point is spending their money? Turning Point USA is taking in donations and then sending the money to their endowment to invest in the stock market. In my opinion, they should be spending donations on operating their nonprofit, not on buying investments. As of fiscal year 2023, they had $61 million of assets in the endowment, which was generating $1.9 million a year of investment income. Personally, I think that's an unethical way to run a nonprofit, but that's just my opinion. But what is important here is what happened to the missing $8.6 million, the amount sent to America's Turning Point in fiscal year 2024. The amount of money sent to America's Turning Point was getting larger and larger, and because the financial statements are missing, we cannot tell how this money was spent. If we look at the prior year, the majority of the money was spent on other salaries and wages. How is this possible when America's Turning Point reports 0 employees? Does anyone else think that sounds a little suspicious? Let me walk you through this. We have the two organizations, the main company Turning Point USA and America's Turning Point. America's Turning Point has never reported any employees. Turning Point USA's number of employees has decreased dramatically over the last 3 years. In the last year alone, the number of employees decreased by 33%. That is a massive decrease in workforce. But while they are laying people off, their salary expense is skyrocketing for both organizations. None of this makes any sense. How is America's Turning Point reporting millions of dollars of salary expense when they have no employees? How is Turning Point USA's salary expense skyrocketing when the number of employees is plummeting? And why are the financial statements missing? What was the $8.6 million spent on? In my opinion, what I think is happening is I think there are fake people on the payroll. I think that paychecks are getting sent to people who do not really exist. And that would explain why we have a company with 0 employees with millions of dollars of salary expense. What about Tyler Boyer's argument that they have an annual financial audit every year? If what I am saying is true, why wouldn't their annual audit catch these issues?
What happens when the prostate enlarges, the urine channel gets tight? Did you know that prostate problems?
The annual financial audit for Turning Point USA, Inc. and its affiliates was performed by an accounting firm called Baker Tilly. In the notes, they explain that they audited Turning Point USA, Turning Point Action, Turning Point Endowment, America's Turning Point, and TP USA Merch. That usually means they audited all the shell companies when they provided their opinion that the statements present fairly in all material respects. That means it is a clean audit with no problems. I wonder if Baker Tilly will provide an explanation why they can issue a flawless audit report when 3 990 forms were never filed with the IRS. And just to clarify, Baker Tilly's audit opinion letter is signed after Turning Point missed the filing date with the IRS. So there is no excuse for Baker Tilly not to mention this in their audit opinion. Just so you understand who Baker Tilly is, let me show you a lawsuit that was filed against them just this year by a Catholic charity.
In a lawsuit filed Friday, Catholic Charities claims they're out millions of dollars after a former employee in their finance department misused funds. And that's not all. The local nonprofit is also going after Baker Tilly, the firm that was auditing their finances at the time. Catholic Charities provides a number of programs, including counseling, adoption, and immigration services. This 12-page lawsuit says the former employee worked for Catholic Charities for over 10 years, holding many positions, including Director of Finance. It says she abused her authority and misappropriated millions of dollars. The lawsuit claims she did this in 2 schemes. The first alleges paying false invoices. Catholic Charities says the second scheme involved the woman using company credit cards for personal purchases like Amazon Prime Video rentals, Uber rides, Ticketmaster purchases, and casino purchases from MGM Grand. The lawsuit also states that Baker Tilly failed to recognize clearly fraudulent purchasing activity.
The lawsuit alleges that someone in leadership at the highest levels of this Catholic charity stole millions of dollars. This was going on year after year after year, and Baker Tilly never mentioned it in any of their audits. It makes you wonder, are they even looking at the financials? This is the same accounting firm doing the annual audits at Turning Point USA. Erika Kirk assumed the role of CEO of Turning Point USA on September 18, 2025, 8 days after Charlie Kirk was murdered. She has been the CEO for almost 2 months. She needs to answer these questions. If someone has lied on the 990 form, people go to jail for that. I want some explanation of why Turning Point USA sent $8.6 million to their shell company and then did not file financial statements. And Erika, I don't know who does the accounting at Turning Point, but if they have not been telling you about any of this, you need to fire your accountants immediately. This reminds me of what happened with Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett is one of the most famous investors in the world. But a lot of people do not know that he got in big trouble with the SEC. This happened a long time ago in the 1970s. He had a rapidly growing organization consisting of all these different shell companies. The companies were transferring money back and forth. The companies would own stocks of all the other companies. The SEC opened an investigation into Warren Buffett for fraud. He talks about this in his biography. He describes a scene where he is sitting with his lawyer, Chuck Rickershauser. Rickershauser had been studying a chart that showed Buffett and Munger's complex financial interests. The complex cross-holdings that Buffett had created looked suspicious. Rickershauser stared at the crazy diagram and fretted. There's got to be an indictment in there somewhere. Now, do I think that Warren Buffett intentionally committed fraud? No, I do not. I think his company grew really fast and things got out of control with all of these shell companies. He fixed it by restructuring the company and paying a $115,000 fine. I think something very similar is happening at Turning Point, and let me give you a specific example. In fiscal year 2023, Turning Point USA, which is the main 501c3 nonprofit organization, transferred $664,572 to Turning Point Action, which is the 501c4 nonprofit. This transfer was reported as reimbursement of event expenses. Turning Point Action then turned around and transferred almost the exact same amount, $650,000, to Turning Point PAC, which is another shell company I haven't even talked about yet. Now, this is not necessarily illegal, but it looks really suspicious. It looks like you are taking in tax-exempt donations at Turning Point USA and then funneling the money through your shell companies to your PAC that you can then spend on political campaigns because of less accounting restrictions. Again, this is not necessarily illegal if they structure their transactions correctly and utilize campaign finance loopholes.
Say goodbye to your reading glasses, computer glasses, and even your sunglasses. Introducing the last pair of glasses.
Hold on, guys. All right, here we go.
But it certainly looks unethical. Why is it that almost the exact same dollar amount gets transferred between the organizations? The difference between Warren Buffett and Turning Point, besides the obvious fact of the difference between private companies and nonprofits, is that at Turning Point, we have missing financial statements and a memo from Charlie Kirk saying that he has concerns with the finances. The problem with having multiple shell companies like this is that it becomes very easy for your employees to steal from the organization. Now, just to clarify for legal reasons, I do not have any evidence of a specific crime. We would need an FBI investigation of the books at Turning Point USA to determine that for sure. What I have presented are red flags and a lot of questions that need to be answered. This is all based on financial evidence that Turning Point themselves has posted online. Anyone can go and confirm everything I am saying. All these problems suggest financial mismanagement at Turning Point USA. And from Charlie Kirk's memo, we know that he did not understand what was going on. If someone was able to keep this hidden from Charlie Kirk, that suggests that the people involved are at the highest levels of Turning Point USA. I will repeat, because I know that a lot of people do not want to believe this. The financial statements suggest that someone at the highest levels of Turning Point USA is stealing the donations. I don't understand why no one is looking into this. Erika Kirk has been the CEO for 2 months, and she needs to start answering questions. I keep coming back to the statement from Warren Buffett's lawyer. When he was looking at the diagram of all the shell companies, he said, there's got to be an indictment in there somewhere. Now I want to hear from you. With everything that I've explained, do you think that Turning Point USA is doing something shady? Let me know in the comments down below. And if you like this video, don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss out on future videos.
All right, guys. So I thought that was interesting, at least worth watching. You know, he was saying anybody could look up the 990 forms. He's just bringing up the point that some of those are missing. You know, a lot of people are like, this is a terrible time for any of this to get brought up because there's a revival happening and all these young people are turning to God. And I thought to myself, what a perfect time. Don't people want to actually see that God is the God of truth? Why are we trying to make things look that they're not? If that makes sense. If there in fact are people working for Turning Point who are crooked, why would you want them there to begin with? Why are we worried about the image of the organization when truthfully, hopefully these people are following Jesus Christ anyway? You can't follow the organization because it's ran by man, and man can be corruptible, you know? And it would be God's grace if it was exposed, especially for Erika Kirk. She's got 2 kids, and if there's people working for her that are, doing dirty deeds, they need to be removed. So I don't know why this would be so offensive or even surprising. Charlie Kirk was assassinated. Like, anything is possible at this point. They haven't, it's like he got assassinated. They took the case. They buttoned everything up. Everything's over. Nothing to see here. And I'm like, what? That's crazy. So I think it's worth at least looking into. A lot of people, don't, they don't, how can you say it? They don't believe that maybe Charlie Kirk did an audit or whatever because, I don't know. I thought he put an email out. I heard about that. I only heard about it from watching Candace Owens' show. And so, only time will really tell, but I hope this isn't too offensive for people to, if in fact, there are somebody working for Turning Point who's stealing money from them, don't you think that they should know? Don't you think Erika should know? Don't you think other people working there should know? So I think they absolutely should. I don't think we need to worry about, oh my gosh, if this gets out, look what's happening. Christians really need to know that God does expose things. You can't protect Christianity from lies. You have to expose them. That's what Christians do. If you're a Christian, you have a spirit of truth. That's what you should be more concerned about, is finding out what the truth is and not worrying about, oh, well, if this organization looks bad, then all of a sudden they're going to give up on their relationship with the Lord. What? Like, I don't understand how that's even, like, why would anybody do that? Then your relationship with the Lord wasn't real to begin with. Right? Like, you can't put your faith in an organization. And so I hope and pray that if Erika doesn't know what's going on, that it'll get revealed to her. If in fact, somebody's working for her and isn't turning in these documents on time. And so that'll be interesting. And, so I just want to share that with you guys. Everything, of course, right now, is getting, what's the word, with all the Epstein stuff going on. That's the big talk right now. So of course, who knows what's going to come of that? I don't even know. I think that's important just for the sake of people, making decisions for this country. They need to be removed from office immediately if they're involved in stuff like that. But is it going to be one of those things where, it's all redacted like those notebooks were, and just made a big show of it? It's like, they've got a lot of proving to do. They've lied so much. The trust has been broke. So that's kind of my concern there. But I hope and pray that, truth does come out. And I just keep asking God for that. I'm not relying, and I pray for the people that God puts in those positions to tell the truth. God always uses another human being. If you look at what happened, anytime people were praying and asking God, oh, Lord, deliver us, he always sent another person. He sent Moses, right? He sent deliverers to go before kings and governments. So it's not uncommon for God to do that. But, we have to pray that God will give those people who have that opportunity the courage to do the job then. Because if they're afraid, then, it's almost like God has to find somebody else. And a lot of people, they like to think, how can you say this? God's in control. He, this or that, and it's like, yes, God is in control, but he also gave us control of this earth. And he lets a lot of things happen, not because it was his will, but to really show you people and what spirit they're being governed by. All right. That's another thing that's important. Some people are really quick to trust somebody just because of what they said, but God's the spirit of truth, and people who don't like being questioned, or who try to, block you from asking questions, that is not a good thing. If what they're saying is true, it's going to stand on its own. But yeah, I don't know. Why is this important? Figuring out what really happened with this thing, because it involves all of us. If we can't trust our institutions to tell us the truth, then all of our lives are in danger at this point. Okay. If who knows? I don't trust the people who are running our country. I don't. People always, they tell you who you're supposed to trust, but I'm like, you've got a lot more to do than just sit here and tell me to trust you and you're going to do a good job. It's funny because a lot of people like to tell us that, it's important that we have Israel in our back pocket because they help us, keep terrorists away and, Islam and all that. And I thought, who the hell left the border open and let some of these people come into our country? Now, yes, obviously Biden had something to do with that. But, the point is we have a lot more people in high positions in the United States who really don't care about this country, who want to see it fall apart. And that's why some of the things have happened in this nation that have happened that shouldn't have been happening. How is it that we have all these Muslims taking over governments in the United States? How is that? Isn't that really bizarre? How many other nations would allow American citizens to actually come in and run in their local, elections and get in positions of authority? Not, right? But we all of a sudden, people come here and we let them do whatever they want. And now they're in there making policy for our country. And I just don't agree with that. I don't think that we, first of all, the border should have always been shut up, but it hasn't. And so now we've got people coming in here, getting into our offices that are making laws and policies that are not in line with American values. And that's not a good thing. And then, there's just other things that are going on that I definitely don't agree with when it comes to, what's happening in the country. The other thing, too, is I've been trying to find that video. Anybody have a link to that interview that Trump had done with Laura Ingraham the other day? And, Doge should audit them. Yeah, Sue, I would say that if, that was even a legit source, because we supposedly had Doge do that for our own books and nothing really came of it. I don't really know what happened with that. It was like, did they really cut all those programs? I don't know. Because in my mind, shouldn't the debt start going down then? Right? Because you're not allocating money to any of them anymore, or they're spending more money on other things as well. So I don't know. But yeah, and that's what was trying to happen. And I guess they didn't think they needed to do that. And then the one that they went through, the Baker Tilly company, to look at what they did, they got a pass. But this guy brought up the fact that this same company also gave a pass to that Catholic charity that was doing an investigation. According to Baker Tilly, even this Catholic organization's books were good. But it turns out this woman was stealing millions of dollars from them. So, it's just interesting. So yeah, I don't know what's going to happen. I'm really sincerely praying that, the truth will come out on everything that's going on. The thing I don't agree with too, look, I voted for Donald Trump, both times. I'm glad he's closing the border. I really hope this whole thing with, listen, he's getting a lot of money from other countries for artificial intelligence. Okay. To build up all this stuff. And I get it. But the thing that I don't like is that he's going to be bringing in a bunch of foreign students to obviously teach American citizens or kids how to, do that stuff. And I thought, what you can honestly see how much American institutions have failed Americans if he can't even find American citizens who went to college to do those kinds of jobs. This is my genuine question. How is bringing in more foreigners, even though they're going to teach Americans, that's what they say, and then they say they're going to send them back, but I really find that hard to believe when they can't even barely get out the ones that are here illegally. How is that really going to help Americans with jobs in the housing crisis? It just doesn't make any sense to me. And I can disagree with the president and still support him. Okay. It's like anytime, any relationship, you can still have a relationship with them, but you don't have to agree with everything that they're doing. And it just seems that there's like this idea that, you know, you have to just blindly trust the people that we voted for just because of their name. It's like, look, I'm not here to defend a name. I'm here to look at the decisions that they're making and figure out if I support that or not. And I do not support Donald Trump bringing in foreign workers to work these jobs, right? I think there's plenty of other Americans out there. We're not talking about ones working at McDonald's. Don't tell me that there isn't citizens, young kids out there that have been going to these colleges that don't have the ability or not even the willingness for them to learn. Why don't we invest in them? And that's why I need somebody to send me that interview. I was looking all over this morning on YouTube trying to find that Laura Ingraham and that Trump interview, the full interview, not like a little 6-minute segment, because you guys know me, I watch everything all the way through. And so I'm trying to find that whole thing, because everybody's like, Ashley, you're not in context. That's not what he said. And I'm like, well, I listened to a 6-minute clip, and he did say that, there's specific things he's looking for, and there's not enough talent among Americans to get it done. And I understand that from a business standpoint, but I don't understand it from the standpoint of an American citizen who's concerned about my fellow Americans, especially the younger generations, getting the shit end of the stick. Where are these people going to live, right? So if you're going to bring in all these foreigners to do these jobs, where are they going to live, right? Who's going to foot the bill for that? Who's going to support their life? I don't know. These are questions that I have. And that was the other thing they were saying. I don't know if Trump had mentioned this or not. You guys correct me if I'm wrong, but something to do with the universities and them falling apart, and you have to bring in these students so they won't. I hope he didn't say that, because these universities have done so much damage to the United States. Why the hell would you want to continue something if it has in fact destroyed this country? A lot of these institutions has been promoting communism and socialist ideas, right? So why the hell would people need to throw any more money at them? If anything, you know what the issue is? I think they just have to set up trade schools. No more universities. Screw that. We need more blue collar trade schools, that kind of stuff. We don't need these institutions that have been brainwashing this country. And honestly, if they're falling apart, that means American citizens don't want to pay for their kids to go to these shitty places anymore. And I don't think there's anything wrong with that. That's exactly what needs to happen. If American citizens are paying for their kids to go to an institution to get a good education, but then they're not educated, they're indoctrinated because they don't get taught everything. Indoctrination is when somebody only teaches you one side of the equation. They're not giving you both sides so you can reason and actually figure out, well, what is truthful here, or what is the best thing. They don't do that in schools. And so why would anybody want those to continue? I just don't understand. But again, I can't find the full, I've looked on YouTube, I can't find the full interview. So if you know where it's at, send it to me, because I'll watch the whole thing. I don't care if it's an hour or 2 hours, I'll watch it. But just to see what he said in full context, that's a big deal. But that's kind of the big issue I have with that right now. And, so we'll see over time. Do I think he was the best candidate for presidency? Hell yeah. I mean, come on, you guys, of course. But that doesn't mean I'm going to agree with everything that he does. I really am America first. And that's the other thing. I do not think that we should be making policies on behalf of other foreign nations. That's bullshit. I can support Israel and also think that lawmakers should not be making laws for them. I don't think that foreign nations should be controlling the social media platforms and the information being spread, on there, because a lot of these other nations, they don't have free speech laws. And so, it's just kind of interesting who owns these social media companies, and are they sort of using it to attack free speech? And so these are just things that I'm concerned about, and so I hope that it's actually going to be a good thing in the long run, that our country will actually be helped in that sense, because we've been doing everything else for all these other countries and not enough here, and here's the other thing. I don't like it when other Americans constantly look at other Americans and think that they're stupid and don't know anything. That is the most degrading way. And as soon as, come on, if somebody told you that you were an idiot, you're not even going to engage with them at all. There's going to be absolutely no respect there. And there's just such a lack of respect, even among the leaders, right? They sit there and they just tear each other apart. Oh, you didn't agree with me. You're a piece of crap. Nobody has to agree with you and everything that you say. And let's stop attacking each other, and let's just start looking at attacking the arguments and the reasons, right? We have to realize that Americans do have the ability to think and ask questions. The younger generation is upset about what's going on. They have every right to be. A lot of people like to make the argument, well, back in my day, back in your day, you weren't $38 trillion in debt either. Things are a little bit different in that sense. And I think that is why the younger generation like Charlie Kirk, because he was actually listening to the things that they were concerned about. And, nobody, and now that he's not here, it's kind of like, well, these guys are stupid. They don't know what they're talking about. So we're just going to keep doing what we're doing. And anyway, so this is just me thinking out loud, you guys. But I want to share that with you guys. I didn't know if you'd seen that video. I'm hoping and praying that if Erika doesn't know about it and that it would get revealed, because obviously she's got children and, she's got a big weight on her with all this stuff. But I hope it'll get in front of her and this stuff will come out. I guess you can look up an organization's 990 forms. If you're a nonprofit, that's what you're supposed to file. So if those things are indeed missing for 2024, I hope that somebody's able to track that down, and hopefully be honest about what's happening. And so anyway, you guys, I'm going to get off here. I just wanted to share that video.